Okay, so this should be a 10-minute presentation just to give you a very quick top 10 on ENCODE 10, just to give you an overview. We've covered a lot of the points over the last 2 days, so I'm going to recap some of the things we also looked at yesterday with regards DesignLife, so some of the CAE enhancements, but focusing largely on what's new in GlyphWorks as well. So we're just going to run through this real quickly. So number one thing we talked about was a new premium materials database. So that's something that is available. We talked about it yesterday, 72 materials that we have so far put in there based on our own fatigue testing. We've invested the money putting it in, testing these materials, and analyzed it. And so that's available using CDS. So that's something, if you're doing fatigue analysis, materials data is often a challenge. Whatever materials database we provide to you, chances are you're going to want something else as well. But that's something we're happy to talk to you about and how we can add new materials in that's going to be beneficial. So that's number one, new materials database. Number two, we enhanced at 10 something that was new in 9.1, which Jeff talked about this morning, which was about how we can do, talked about yesterday, which was how we do fatigue, how we do safety factor calculations. This has application primarily in powertrain design, things like engines. So quick safety factor calculations with some new capabilities. We extended that in 10 with some additional features there. Also talked about yesterday how we've enhanced our distributed processing. So in DesignLife, we've worked hard to enable ability to really scale what we can do, being able to use high-performance clusters or even distribute across multiple machines. So in order to solve real big problems or get analysis time as short as possible, we've enabled what's called MPI, this protocol for distributing jobs. So that's something we've also enhanced in version 10 by supporting IBM's version of that. So the application there is large batch jobs. You saw today the new GPS processing glyph. It was interesting talking to some of you over lunch, over potential applications. Quite a few, I think, are going to go and get version 10 installed and see what this will do for you. And that's the purpose of a day like this, right? To put things in front of you, say, hey, what do you think? Take a look. Give us your feedback. Tell us what works, what doesn't. But I think it's a really good way. You've got cheap data with GPS. What can you do with it? What can you calculate? And that's included as part of the GPS display option. So if you have the GPS display, you'll get this already. You don't have to buy anything else. It also uses CDS tokens. The application there is really understanding vehicle usage. For those, again, using CAE, we've enhanced what we can do with Abaqus ODB files, something that used to trip people over. Abaqus can have lots of different parts and assemblies, and each one's got the same node numbers in it. Well, we can now actually support that in version 10, such that you can have multiple parts, multiple assemblies, and we'll carry that information all the way through the analysis. So that avoids problems with duplicate node and element numbers. Here's one that I think is probably going to be of benefit to a lot of people. Just what we have to do is keep moving what we can do with our displays forward, more reporting capabilities. So there's quite a few enhancements just in the XY display itself. So one of the new features in 10 is the ability to add annotation shapes, things like boxes, ellipses, arrows, straight onto your XY display itself, together with text labels to go on those. What's the nice thing about the way we've implemented that in the XY display is that those annotation shapes and labels actually lock onto the data. So as you zoom in or zoom out, the labels stick with the data. They're not fixed on the screen. They're actually locked onto the data itself. So that makes it more usable for showing people what's going on. Multiple x-axes. Someone was asking me about that over lunch. You can actually now have not only just multiple y-axes, you can actually have separate multiple x-axes as well when you're doing overlays. Step line style, good for things like actual digital channels. Cursor output. Lisa, I thought this might help you because you're trying to get up with that PSD, where you're trying to pick your frequencies to use downstream. What you can do now in the XY display is actually put cursors on, just like Kurt was showing. Putting the cursors on, you can actually add now an output pad directly on your XY display, and it'll put out a table. So you can do it interactively, put it out, recalculate. How does that work? Move them, run it again. So what you're saying about how can you automate that? That's probably about as good as we can do right now. Yeah, but it's better than typing it in, right? Reference line input as well. That's something for things like envelopes. You can now bring that in on a table. Andrew was talking earlier about rotating machinery, waterfalls displays. We've got quite a few new enhancements in that area. He mentioned one of them, which was the fact that now on the frequency response you can output a waterfall. So you're looking at how the frequency response varies with time. We can also do the same thing with the octave analysis, which is what that bottom plot is. That's an octave analysis with time. So you can see how the frequency content varied with octaves. It can be great for things like more like a sound level data. And we've also put some new styles in the waterfall display. For example, you can see there, the way Andrew was showing it before. He was showing it in Studio with a plot of the waterfall together with a time series next to it. We can actually plot the time series now directly in the waterfall display. You don't have to go into Studio to do that. You can actually put an additional 2D plot. You can see that red line on the back wall of your waterfall display. So you can actually see both. It's like a four-dimensional plot, if you like. You can actually see the waterfall, and you can see any other plot you want to throw on any of the walls of that waterfall display. Helps to compare what's going on when and what's causing things. New default style for the 3D histogram. It's now shaded by default. We used to have this problem in 9.1. You make your plot small and you get a lot of black on the screen, right? You don't really see much color because all the black outlines of the tower plots. Now in version 10, because it's actually shaded with color, you can actually still see what's going on even if you've got smaller plots on the screen. This is one that I think is, again, if you're using SoMat for data acquisition, you may find useful. SoMat's hardware has got some great run capabilities, burst triggering type capabilities. We've often struggled, or in the past we've struggled on how best to display that in GlyphWorks. We've actually bit the bullet in this release and we're actually displaying it properly, where you will see now, if you've got burst data in your SIF file, you'll actually see there's a new folder appearing, and it's called burst data. So we actually split it out, stick it in a burst channel separately. You can drag that on into a burst input glyph, and when you plot that, you're actually going to carry through all the metadata so that you're actually seeing all the separate bursts properly split out in time. A main application for that is really just for visualization, trying to see what happened when with regard to bursts. But if you're using SoMat EDAC hardware, that's a nice feature for enabling you to actually visualize your data with the gaps in it. The only other way we could have done that before was to pad the data full of millions of data points that you didn't want to see. So this way you can visualize things much more efficiently. And I cheated because the last one here I've got 5 on there. So final slide, usability improvements. Kurt's already gone over some of those kind of usability things. And we're aware of the fact that we put usability things and you don't always know that they're there, so they don't really help you use the software. Some of the things we have added in this release, and please find this one because I think you'll find this one helpful, is now a new toolbar button that empties all your input glyphs in one click. So if you've got lots of inputs, you don't have to now go right mouse click empty, right mouse click remove all tests, right mouse click remove all tests. Single button, remove all the inputs in a flow. That could be helpful. Rory? That is workspace by workspace. We have a new type conversion glyph which is in its infancy, but this is really consolidating things like converting from red pipes to blue pipes to red pipes, converting red pipes to yellow pipes. Make it easier for you to convert what are just data types for us. And so this is the first release of that. And in this one, it's fairly trivial. It's literally just going from time series to histogram, histogram to time series. That can be you might be thinking, why do I care? That can be useful if you're trying to, you're doing some of the things that, Mike's looking at. You're trying to find workarounds for things. You're trying to convert it to this type so you can use this glyph to do it with it. You're trying to think outside the glyph a little bit. And so type conversion, that's going to be useful, especially in future as we add more capabilities. Oh, here's a good one. Deleting metadata. You'd think by version 10 we'd have got there a little bit sooner than this, but this is actually, you can actually delete metadata in glyphworks. Up to this point, you create metadata, it just keeps going. There were some workaround ways for stripping it out, but now in the metadata manipulation glyph, there's some really nice features for deleting individual or whole sets or complete items or wildcards. You can strip out one or more metadata items as part of a process. Faster open data files. We've done some things there if you use that feature for getting data in, and faster model visualization I mentioned yesterday. So I don't know if that was close to 10 minutes, but that gives you, just hit some of the highlights. I don't know how many of you ever get the release notes on your desk, but there'll be more things in the release notes you can read, but there's some of the highlights just to get you a feel for what we moved forward at this last release. As was mentioned before, our next targeted release is next January. So, we always appreciate your feedback. So hopefully you've filled in those forms because we do read them. We don't just toss them, and we appreciate your feedback on the product. That's how we improve it. So thanks for your time.